Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Jay versus Horror. It's the Mother's Day episode. That's right. We're gonna reel off 5 reviews from new films real quick. We did 13 reviews last week. We got 5 more for you, and then we're gonna hit 5 underrated horror films you can watch for free. This is the Mother's Day edition, guys. So all these movies are gonna tie into mothers. Somehow you can watch them for free, and I could just tell you where they're at, but since I'm such a nice guy and I love horror movies, I'm going to give you guys the links below in this video, right below in the post. I'm going to give you the links. You click on the links, it's going to take you right to the movie. You can watch it with your mama. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to knock out these 5 reviews real quick. These are from new films. The first one is Renfield, starring Nicolas Cage, Nicholas Hoult. Great film, guys. This one super surprised me because I saw the trailer for this, and I love Nicolas Cage. I'm one of those people that I love him. I know he's a love it or hate it type guy, especially at this stage of his career. But if you look at his work over the last few years, especially Mandy, Color Out of Space, Mom and Dad, just a lot of great movies, a lot of great performances, and this one is really great too. And this is a big picture. It's a universal picture. They're playing with the Dracula story, and they're telling it from the perspective of Renfield. But it's modernized, and it feels like it's a fun buddy cop comedy at times. It also feels like it's a weird superhero movie at times. It definitely feels like a horror movie. There's lots of gore, even though it's CGI. And if you're going to use CGI gore, this is what you should use it for, is for a movie that's fun, where nobody cares. Not where you're trying to make it look realistic, like you're taking bodies apart or something. Nicolas Cage is pure gold in this, as Dracula. I would say they almost used him a little too much towards the end of the film. I would have cut back on him a little bit, because he's really great at the beginning, especially when he's becoming Dracula, and he's just so nonchalant with his attitude and his perspective about the way things should be. Very good part for Nicolas Cage in Renfield. I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10. I liked it a lot, guys, and like I said, it surprised me. I didn't think it was going to be very good. From the trailer I saw and everything, it just looked really cheesy. And it was really cheesy and goofy and fun, and this is kind of what you want from a horror film these days. And so we're moving on, and the next film we're going to talk about is Clock. Guys, this one is a weird horror film about a woman whose biological clock is running out. So yes, I guess this ties into motherhood and Mother's Day to some degree. There's some strangely good actors in the film that pop up, like Melora Hardin, for some reason is in this, playing a doctor. You might remember her from, she played Jan on The Office, and she's very good at playing that like cold type woman. And here she's a mad scientist slash gynecologist slash OBGYN slash trauma psychologist. Yeah, she's got a plan for women who don't want to have children, and that's to use psychology and drugs and hormones and all these different methods to make them want to have kids. Now, this seemed like a flawed plot to me going in, because it's like, if you don't want to do something, why do you want to force yourself to want to do it? I would understand that a little bit, like your spouse wants you to do it, but still, I mean, you're talking about something. There's other ways these days. You can adopt. You can, use a surrogate. These people didn't seem like they were too bad off. They were very successful in the film, so I don't know why that wasn't an option for them. But she decides to try to force herself to have a child, or to get ready to have a child. And I think an even more horrifying idea struck me while I was watching this film, that there is like pregnancy is like a horror film, right? Really, I mean, I almost started picturing John Hurt from Alien. It's like another creature, infects you with something, puts something into your body, and you carry it, and then after a while, after it incubates, it bursts out of you. And that's what, like, I'm just so happy I'm not a woman. I'm glad I'm not a mother. I don't think I could deal with it, because to me it would be a real life horror film. And so that's kind of where my mind was going while I was watching this film, which wasn't as good as what was going on in my mind. And at the end of the movie, it had a really lame ending. Kind of just a bailout ending. Like, they didn't have an ending, so they just wrote something on the end, and it ruined whatever good stuff they did have going here, which there are some good, deep ideas here about, what is the biological nature of life? What is our real only purpose here? Now, we can try to define it however we want to, and we can believe that we're magical beings and all this other stuff, but really we're just here to reproduce, to pass the torch, to make sure it keeps going. And is there some kind of horror involved in that, or not? Fulfilling that destiny or whatever. I don't know. There were some good ideas in Clock, but they missed the boat with trying to overdo, the vision. I get tired of these horror films too, where they have a decent idea, but then they have to add the hallucination aspect, where, okay, this person is now hallucinating because of this thing that's happening to them. It can't just be scary enough that this thing is happening to them. They have to hallucinate and see demons and things that aren't there, right? And shaky monsters and, Slender Men and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm going to give Clock 5.5 out of 10, guys. I wanted to give it more. It had good production value. I said it had a couple good actors in it. But it just falls short, especially in that last act. It's really terrible, the ending. It doesn't even seem like it has anything to do with the rest of the movie other than, okay, we've reached a point where the person is unreliable now and because of something that's happened to them, which that could be anything, right? It takes away from the actual idea. All right, moving on. The next film I'm going to talk about is called From Black. This is a smaller film that, a lot of people will probably give this a lower score than the one I just talked about, Clock. I'm going to give it a higher score because it accomplishes more with a smaller budget. And yeah, it is one of these let's throw different ideas at the wall and see what sticks. Fortunately for me, I thought more stuck than what didn't with From Black. It starts out as a kind of like Pet Cemetery type thing. And before you know it, you're reaching into like almost like a Hellraiser type thing where you're going through a ritual. I don't want to say too much more about it because I think you just need to watch it. The one thing I did like about this one, besides the mixing of the elements, and so I like it when they mix elements together. People call it a ripoff. I don't think it's a ripoff. You take derivative, everything is derivative, and you take these ideas, you mix them together, you come up with the best soup you can. And I think that From Black does that pretty well, but even beyond that, there's some good dialogue and stuff in here. There's some good like character acting and stuff. And so yeah, I gave From Black 6 out of 10. And I think that there may be some people out there that like this one even a little bit more. It's a little bit grittier than that. I wish they'd went in a little bit different direction towards the end, but I don't want to spoil it by saying that I'm not happy with where they went. There's a possibility that could help spoil it, so I won't say that. All right, moving on. The next film we're going to talk about from 2023 is called Fear. That's right. This is such an original title, right? We haven't seen this a million freaking times, from Mark Wahlberg to Ali Sheedy and now to the guy from, what's that show? Power on Stars. Yeah. And this movie is not that bad. It's just frustrating because I don't even know if I can tell you what it's about other than, there's some fear stuff going on. They're going out there to, this group of friends is going out there to do this kind of half-assed fear study. But there's also some kind of entity that's involved in all this. And, it's really convoluted about what's actually happening. But what's frustrating is, it'd be easy enough to just say it's a bad movie and turn it off. But there's some decent performances and there's some decent kills in the movie, setups for kills. But the story is just not great, and it falls apart all through from the beginning to the end. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it jumps around a lot. They try to explain why they're jumping around with a subplot that it's just like, come on, guys. And in the end, the worst thing about Fear is the music. I think people owed people favors in this movie or something. There's some really bad rap songs, and when I was listening to this, I thought, well, maybe this is some kind of deep cut from the late 80s I never heard before or something. And then I realized, no, this is new. The guy starts talking about his iPhone 9 or something, or 19 or something. I can't remember. But I was like, it's just bad. There's some R&B songs in there, and I'm thinking like maybe the actresses from the movie sang these songs and that was part of it, or I don't know. But Fear 5 out of 10, and that's being generous, guys. It has some production value, and like I said, there's some good kills in it if you just want to watch those scenes. But as far as putting a cohesive story together, it's really out there. And the last new one we're going to talk about is Circle Line. We just watched this one last night. It's from Singapore, and it's a creature feature. It's a really short film. It's under like 90 minutes, and it's just these people get trapped on the Circle Line, which is an underground subway in Singapore. And for some reason, it's funny to me in this movie. This was, a good part of the movie, and it was actually very humorous to me, them trying to explain why this train went off track. And it went into the old abandoned part of the subway. Like, this could never happen, right? It's like electronic railways don't work with old railways. They don't just send the train down an old track that's been deserted for 70 years or whatever. That doesn't happen, right? But in the movies, things happen like this, and then that's what happens in Circle Line. And we also get a creature here that's not fully explained. I didn't believe, but I got what it was, where it came from, and why it was doing what it was doing. It's all jam packed in this like 84-minute movie or something. So, but you know, the special effects are pretty good. They're CGI effects, so don't expect any practical effects or puppet monsters or anything like that. But all in all, I gave it 5.5 out of 10. I thought it could have been a little bit better, and I think that when we started watching it, I suspected it would be better, and it just kind of kept going nowhere for a while. So that's the 5 new movies, guys. That puts us up around, 70 new movies for this year. Eventually, at the end of next month, we're going to have to do a top 50 or something at the halfway point for 2023. Okay, now we're going to talk about 5 free movies that we can tie into Mother's Day that are free. They're underrated. Some of you haven't seen these movies. Some of you have seen all these movies. Especially if you're like me, you've probably seen them multiple times. Now let's get started. I'm going to give you guys, while we're talking, I'm going to give you the sites. But if you watch the video and you scroll down below, you're going to see all the links. Click the links. You'll go right to the movies. Okay, let's talk about these movies. Let's get started here with number 5. At number 5, I have We Need to Talk About Kevin from 2012, starring Tilda Swinton. And John C. Reilly's in this, I believe, too. Yeah, from Talladega Nights. And every now and then you'll see him in a dramatic role. A lot of people think this isn't a horror movie. A lot of people think this is a drama. People think about what is going on in this country today. This was 10 years ago, and you could look 10 years before that. It's a problem that's out of control, and it's not. One thing I will say about, I don't want to get too far into it. If you haven't seen this movie, watch this movie. It is an epic battle of wills between a woman and her son, and she loves him no matter what he does, and he is testing that. That's what this is about. He is testing that. Oh, you're going to love me no matter what? We'll see about that. Well, the movie ends in complete tragedy. I don't want to give too much away. I think it has something to say about society, and plus it's just horrible. It's horrible what happens in this film. So you can't tell me. To me, if it evokes that from you, if it evokes horror, tension, fear, those type things, then that's what it is. And We Need to Talk About Kevin scares me because it's more real than most of the horror films you'll ever see, right? So that one, guys, you can get it on Tubi. A lot of these are going to be Tubi, but don't sleep on Pluto, Freeview, even stuff like Vudu and Redbox. Check those out, because even though they have a lot of paid movies, they have a lot of free movies. And there's tons and tons of back catalog horror movies from the last 20 years, the last 30 years, the last 40 years on these channels. So check them out. Now, we're moving on, and the next one we're going to talk about is one we just watched today. I've been meaning to watch this movie for, let's say, just under 40 years. Nah, just probably 30 years. And I think Lisa's been trying to watch it for a long time, too. Now, it's kind of almost a legendary film at this point. You can get it on Tubi. It's called Threads. It's from 1984. And, man, if there's anything the British are good at, it's TV movies, because they used to scare the shit out of each other with these TV movies, right? And Threads was one of them from 84. Why do I have this in the Mother's Day category? Well, there's a very strong mother-child story in this movie. It's pretty much the thread of Threads. It's pulled through that entire story to the very end. And the heartbreaking, bitter end of this film. And you really don't know, at a certain point in this film, there's no turning back, where, it's not going to be a happy ending. But you just kind of hope that it's bearable. And I don't know if this one is or not. It's a really intense story, and it's basically about nuclear holocaust. It's the United States and Russia get into a shoving match, and they start dropping nuclear bombs on each other. And poor UK and England, they're right in the middle, and they end up with all the fallout, all the terribleness that doesn't come with just getting blown up instantly in a bomb. All the toxic water and the just every possible terrible thing you could think of that could be realistic in this world happens in this movie, pretty much, including probably scaring the shit out of every kid in England when they saw this on TV, because I don't know, some of these effects, like you watch them and you're like, okay, I see how they obviously just set a fan up and had these guys crawl underneath the truck and it looks terrifying. And fire coming through the damn walls, and you're wondering, like, how did they blow up some of these buildings like that? And you see what they did was they superimposed to the building and then they blew up something else. But they did it so fast you couldn't tell, and it looked like they created the end of the world in this film. It's really good. It's a good watch. 2 hours. It moves a little slow, but I like the way it's set up. It almost seems like if an alien was doing a book report on what happened to humanity. That's kind of what Threads is like, with a couple little stories running through it. Now we're moving on, and the next one we're going to talk about. This one's on YouTube, guys, and I talk about this one when I get a chance when we talk about underrated zombie movies or anything like that. It's called Mutants from 2009. It's a French film, and it says mutants, but it's really a zombie movie. And there is a strong mother-child story running through this one. There's also a mother and father story running through this. And basically what it is it's the end of the world. These people get trapped, and they make it to a abandoned hospital, but the father's been bit, and now the mother has to prepare to give birth to this child while trying to control the zombie father, and everything is out of control, and then some damn mercenaries show up, and things go from bad to worse, and it's a crazy movie. It's hard to define. Zombie, revenge, horror, infection movie. It's a great movie, though, and it always gets overlooked, and I think the reason why is because, there's not really a real place for this movie with the French movement of that era. We're going to talk about another one of those famous films here in a little bit, but like Martyrs and stuff like that, Frontiers. This one didn't fit into that. It's more like The Horde, and I think The Horde kind of took the spotlight of French zombie films at that time. So, Mutants from 2009. I'm going to give you guys the link, but it is on YouTube. Now, we're moving on. Our next one is The Monitor from 2011. Now, man, this is a really good film. I think this is Rooney Mara, the girl with the dragon tattoo, I believe. And I think that's who this is. Maybe I'm wrong. Rooney Mara, whatever her name is. Jay's getting old. But anyway, I remember this movie specifically when it came out. And, I've recommended it to people over the years. It's a good paranormal film. And it's a movie about a single mother who's trying to move on with her life. She's trying to get out of an abusive relationship with her child. And things just, she's in this really terrible apartment. It looks like they took an old gymnasium and turned it into apartments or something. It's just concrete and terribleness and muck. And, but she's trying. She's doing everything she can. And she's fighting the system. And she's fighting her ex-husband. And she's trying to keep her kid. And then all of a sudden, one night, when she's got her baby monitor plugged up and she's trying to listen to her child, she hears the voice of another child. And this leads down a very dark path for her. And I don't want to spoil anything about it because it's a crazy-ass movie, and it's also very sad and dark, depressing, and it's about motherhood, of course. So, from 2011, check it out. It's all these are really good movies, guys. I didn't give them scores, but just if I was going to give them scores, they're all like 8 out of 10 movies. And, of course, now we're going to talk about the mother of these movies. This one's not underrated, because if you haven't heard about this movie or you haven't seen it, you're just not a super hardcore horror fan. Go check it out, definitely, if you haven't. Because even if you don't like horror movies, this one is just an experience that you need to see. It's Inside from 2007. Oh my God, guys. Beatrice Dali. This woman, we're going to have to give her some kind of Lifetime Achievement Award. Another movie she was in, if you've never seen it, which one was it? Trouble Every Day, the weird vampire movie. And I think she was in Live It a little bit. She's been in a ton of these type of movies, but this is her crowning performance. She is one of the most vicious villains of all time in this film. And it's a simple story about a woman who loses her husband. She's about to give birth on Christmas, or, we are now at the night before Christmas. And there's a knock on the door, and it's a woman. And it's a woman dressed in black, and she wants her baby. And I remember the first time I saw this movie, I was just really surprised by how vicious it was. And how she just went for it right from the beginning. I thought, when I first started watching it, I think I had seen The Strangers, before this. Or, maybe before this. I can't remember. They were pretty close to each other. I think I might have seen The Strangers before this and then Inside. But anyway, that's the kind of feel I thought the setup was going to have. Is that she was going to keep messing with her for a long time. And this night was going to be drawn out into that. No, she goes after her, and it becomes a cutthroat, vicious battle to the end. It's a bloodbath, and very well done. I mean, there's a couple scenes here and there where you could say it kind of gets almost into like a little bit of slapsticky horror with the gore stuff, but it all works. And yeah, just the performances are off the charts. Inside from 2007, guys. It's on Tubi. Check it out while you can. There's some other great stuff on Tubi. I mean, like you can't oversell these sites enough. Go check them out. Red, White, and Blue's on there now. Kill List is on there now. The Stranger, just stuff that has been out for years that wasn't on there is on there now. So yeah, let's move on, guys. We put out there earlier today, what was your top 3 Mother's Day horror films? There's so many great answers. The Exorcist, Aliens. Lots of people said lots of things. The Woman was said. Psycho was said. Of course, Psycho was said. Friday the 13th. And Mother's Day, both versions of Mother's Day, which, by the way, are both on Tubi for free if you want to check those out. The one with Rebecca De Mornay is not a goofy film. It's an actual horror film, and it's pretty good, from 2010. But yeah, so we had a lot of great answers, and just, Grace was one that was underrated that I thought was a really good answer. Another one that other people had mentioned, Mama was on here. Goodnight Mommy. Several great mentions, guys. Great answers. And yeah, check out all these, definitely, guys. And if you just go on TV or go on Tubi, Pluto, those places, and look, and just kind of keep in your mind that you're looking for horror movies about moms, you're going to see a ton of them. I literally cut probably 25 movies, and I didn't even get maybe. I probably looked at 600 or something, and yeah, I mean, there was tons of movies that had to do with mothers that could have been included in this list. So if you're really on this hunt, just go in there and look. But yeah, so me and Lisa, we chose some underrated ones from the last couple of years that we wanted to mention for you guys. I think you can find most of these on Hulu or Shudder, and Lisa's picks from the last couple years are Nocebo, which is a great film with Eva Green. It takes a very surprising twist, very mother-child related. Good pick from Lisa. And also another one she chose was Run with Sarah Paulson. Kind of a darker take on the mom situation. If you remember the Gypsy Rose story, it kind of seems like they took that idea and turned it up a little bit. I don't know if you could turn that story up a little bit. That one ended in tragic, horrific murder. So I don't know, but maybe they flipped it around on this one or whatever. And so the ones that I wanted to talk about from the last couple years, this one from this year, Blood with Michelle Moynihan, really good film, and it seems like a story you've seen before, even though if you can tell me exactly where you've seen the story before, I'll give you $5. If I had $5, I would give it to you. But anyway, the other one I'm going to talk about is A Banquet from, I think, 2021, maybe. It's on Hulu also, and man, what a mom-daughter story. Just crazy movie about a daughter who becomes a religious zealot, and she stops eating, and she swears up and down that this is the best thing for her, and her mother is freaking out, and it just becomes this harrowing story of what do you do for your child, and, how far do you let their delusion go? Is it a delusion? Maybe this is something that's actually happening for them, and it's a crazy story. So yeah, it's very slow. Don't go into it thinking anybody's going to get slaughtered or anything like that. Not that kind of film, but A Banquet. And then, of course, guys, can't go wrong with Evil Dead Rise. It's definitely a mother story there. And so I'm just going to tell a little quick story about our moms. Lisa, one of her favorite movies with her mom is that her mom took her to see Gremlins 2, and that's one of her favorite movies. We just watched it again the other day. And a quick story about my mom. My mom got me into horror, but my mom wasn't, she wasn't going to let me watch like Freddy or Friday the 13th. We didn't play that stuff around my house, okay? Like, if I wanted to watch those movies, I had to sneak around and watch them. Some of those movies I didn't even see till I was like 16 or 17 years old because of my mom. But I would try to sneak her Stephen King books when she wasn't looking and read some of those, or I would try to sneak to a friend's house and watch a Freddy movie, or I would, my mom had a very substantial love, my mother and my grandmother, of Universal horror, the old stuff, Hammer horror, Universal horror, the old anthology shows, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Twilight Zone, stuff like that. And so that's where my original love of horror comes from. And I think that's why, even though it's evolved over the years, I love, gory films. I love weird films. I love found footage films. I love every aspect of horror. But it started with this foundation of the stories, and they had to have a great story or nothing else mattered, right? So yeah, I appreciate that from my mom. And another thing that my mom did to really kickstart my love of horror was, I told you she had a line where she was like, if it's tasteful and it's horror, you could watch it because it qualifies as art. But if it's just gory, then she wasn't going to let you watch it. Now I didn't say she wouldn't watch it because there were several movies. What my little thing was back then, even then I was a devious little bastard. And so what I would do is I would wait till her and her friends or I guess my aunts and uncles were watching a movie, and what I would do is I would try to sneak in there and be like, oh, I don't feel good. Oh, mom, and really I'm trying to get her to baby me, but really I'm watching the movie, right? And I could legitimately get away with that when I was a kid because I had a liver transplant, so it just I could get away with it. But still, even then, mom wasn't playing, and what she would do is she would put her hand over your eyes. She would make you sit there and put her hand over your eyes. But you know what? I remember very clearly that it just stuck with me forever because this is what started it for me, is that she did this to me one time, and I just remember there was this room full of adults. I didn't know what movie they were watching, but I could hear a little bit of the movie. But more than that, I could hear the adults in the room reacting to the movie. Oh, oh, oh. And because of that, it set my mind on fire. I wanted to know what they were seeing, and what I was imagining was far beyond what they were actually seeing. And I had no idea what the movie was. And there's no way to go back in time to that moment and find, any kind of evidence or clue or anything like that. So what I did was I tried to, dig this memory out of my mind. And for years I worked on it, little, down to the smallest details, the smallest things I could remember to put together. And eventually I figured out what the movie was. And from one really crazy scene, and I'm sure you probably think you know what it is, but you don't. The movie is called Burial Ground from 1981, and it actually made it onto the DPP Video Nasties list. And it actually got banned. And when I don't know, I'd seen the movie before when I was younger, and it didn't click with me, or somewhere around 35 or something, I started watching this movie one day, and it just started clicking. The dialogue was clicking, the scenes were clicking, and I was like, oh my God, yes, that's it! And, I wasn't disappointed, I could say that. And, it's so crazy that this movie that I didn't see for 30 years or something is the movie that started me on my journey of watching 1,000 or 5, probably, what are we up to? I don't know, maybe. I tried to figure it out the other day, and I figured, just to go as a general good number, an average number would be 300 movies a year. So that would be 3,000 in the last 10 years. And I'll say I even slowed down a little bit, and I'll give myself 2,000 before that, and then we'll chop up the first 20 years to another 1,000. We'll say I've seen 7,000 movies, right? And probably at least half or more of those are horror movies. I'd say at least 5,000 of those are horror movies because once I got hooked on that, there was no looking back. But yeah, thanks, Mom. I love you. Thanks for helping out, and thanks for getting me started on this journey. You and Grandma both, Grandma Barbara, and because the other side of my family was not like that. They were farmers, and they were not creative, and they didn't care about stuff like that. They didn't have time for that. But I love them too. I'm just saying they didn't have time for that. But yeah, guys, hey, we're trying to pay the bills around here. I'm going to drop a link below with the link to these movies. If you want to help us out, we would appreciate it if you could drop us a couple bucks. We're about to make a big move here. And the next week, hopefully everything goes off without a hitch, no pun intended. Yeah, we need your help because, we want to keep things going. We want to keep making these videos. We want to keep giving, our thoughts on the movies every week that we can. And keep the page going, keep the YouTube channel going, all that stuff. The reason why I'm doing GoFundMe is because, guys, with GoFundMe, it's not like they're going to beg you for money every month. I tried Patreon in the past when we were doing this channel. And I felt bad after a little bit because I realized they're hitting my friends every month for money whether they have it or not, right? So, yes, it's GoFundMe, but you can just donate one time, whatever you want to donate. If it's $1, if you don't want to donate at all, that's fine. But I'm just saying, you can do it one time, and you're not going to have to worry about them taking money out of your account every month when you least expect it, when you need diapers or lunch that day or something, boom, they hit you for $10, and you're like, oh, great. Well, at least my buddy got my $10 this month. So yeah, if you want to drop us a few bucks, we appreciate it. If not, hey, times are tough, things are hard, right? And Mother's Day is this weekend. We're going to try to get back to you next weekend. We got a bunch of movies lined up. Probably have another 4 or 5 new movies. We'll definitely have another 5 underrated free horror films for you off sites. And we'll get the links up so you can go right to them. Guys, enjoy the movies. We love you. Happy Mother's Day. And we'll talk to you the next time we got something we're talking about. Bye.